I am Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and I'm joined today by a special guest from IFAW. Do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners, your name and title?
Sure. Hello. My name is Kathleen Collins, and I'm the Senior Marine Campaign Manager here at IFA.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. Unfortunately, it is for relatively sad news. The endangered right whale species has lost another individual. A body was discovered off of Martha's Vineyard recently, and we just want to catch up with you, kind of get the details that have come out now. I know that a necropsy was planned, so I just wanted to ask a little bit more about when did the call come in? What were you finding on the beach essentially when you walked in, and what is the latest in terms of information? Is that necropsy completed?
Sure. So we received a call on Sunday evening from someone who was walking the beach that a whale was found in the surf. And so quickly, IFA teams were able to deploy alongside of a team from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, WHOI, NOAA, as well as Massachusetts Environmental State Police. And so, what they found when they turned up on the beach yesterday morning was a juvenile female North Atlantic right whale in the surf on the beach. She did have gear wrapped around her tail, and she was in a tricky location. So, a necropsy was not able to be completed yesterday. And the teams have been working to figure out the logistics, and a necropsy is currently planned for later this week once they're able to relocate her to a different location that's more suitable.
Mhm. What are some of the challenges that go into that? I mean, is it right now there's just the water, you'd have to be on a boat? I mean, I know that there's a lot of material essentially to work through, trying to keep it as non-squeamish as possible for those with lighter stomachs. But it is scientific venture. Can you just elaborate more?
Yeah, so to put this into context, so she is approximately 27 feet long and 11 tons. So she's still a relatively large animal, even though she's small or a juvenile for a North Atlantic right whale. So there's quite a few logistics that go into having to move her body, including having to secure it so it doesn't float away overnight while we're figuring out logistics and doing other pieces of examinations onto her. So it's a lot of heavy machinery, it's a lot of volunteers and manpower to get her into a location where it's more suitable. So we have boats, we have trucks, we have lifts, and a lot of folks that'll have to come together to make this a possibility.
All right. Unfortunately, then I guess my follow-up question is going to be unanswerable, which is, do you know roughly what the cause of death might have been? Are there hypotheses now, or theories, or do you kind of try to keep your mouth zipped until you can really get the scientific data to back it up?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't speculate on that at this time until we're able to complete that full necropsy. It's really quite hard to put any speculation into place without seeing the internal organs of the animal and some of those internal things that you typically see during a necropsy. So, unfortunately, we'll have to tell you to wait and see, and there will be more information released after the necropsy.
All right, awesome. Now, as well, I don't want to cause not necessarily that the entanglement was the cause, but can you elaborate more on what challenges that particular entanglement might pose for the animal while it's alive, especially wrapped around the tail like that?
Yeah, so entanglements are fairly common for North Atlantic right whales. And what we know is in cases of entanglement, it can cause great difficulty in movement. So, an entanglement around a tail of a whale would make it quite hard to swim. It would make it more difficult to find food. And it could make it just that much more challenging when they're already facing quite a few challenges avoiding vessels, avoiding other gear, and trying to get to those optimal places of high food. So this animal would have been quite stressed. It would have been in quite a bit of pain. Entanglements dig in quite deep when they have been there for a while, and it would have had a really tragic last few months, if not more, of its life, depending on how long that entanglement was actually on it.
Mhm. Now, how do you judge how old a whale might be? We've described it as juvenile, but could it be that it was just malnourished because of this impacting its ability to swim and catch prey? Or how do you judge these things?
That's a great question. So we know that it's a juvenile based on its length and its weight. So even though it was likely malnourished simply because of the gear that was on its tail and the fact that most North Atlantic right whales are malnourished. We're able to tell its rough age based on that length in particular. So we know that this was not a newborn calf this year, and we know for a fact that this is not a full-grown North Atlantic right whale. And we will know its exact date as well as its identification number and name, if it had been named,
Mm.
once we're able to flip the whale over and view its callosities so we can actually compare that to the database that we have.
Sure. And just for those who might not be aware, including myself, what are callosities? Is that part of the is that markings, or is that particularly like the bumps, or?
Yeah, so it's if you've ever seen a North Atlantic right whale, it's kind of those white markings that are on its head. They're little sea lice essentially, and they help to form unique patterns, and you can identify the whales through those callosities.
All right. Where do you get that information? Is there a big book of the whale catalog available online, or who do you have to contact for that data to try and do a the whale fingerprint analysis that's going to follow?
Yeah, so the North Atlantic Right Whale Consortium is in partnership with the Anderson Cabot Research Center at the New England Aquarium, and they hold the right whale catalog that has those unique identifications for each individual that's ever been spotted.
Very fascinating. As well, you mentioned already that this is a female and relatively young as well. For those who might not be familiar, is this a big impact because it's such an endangered species? A breeding female essentially lost before they could even begin calving. Can you just elaborate more on that issue?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This death is incredibly tragic and it's just heartbreaking. So, as this is a young female, just 1 to 2 years old, or 2 to 3 years old, realistically. She wasn't able to become reproductively active, but if she had not encountered this untimely death, she could have gone on to be a highly reproductive female in this population, which is really what this population needs. We're at approximately 350 individuals and only 70 reproductive females right now. So losing a juvenile female is a significant loss to this population, and it's really quite concerning.
hmm so this individual was probably 2 to 3 years old, I believe you said earlier.
That's a rough
Okay,
estimate just based on weight and length. Yes.
sure. When do the whales become sexually mature? When can they start reproducing?
So we typically see it around the age of 8 to 9. We are seeing a delay in that though, because their body conditions of this population is so poor. It is taking them longer to become reproductive. So we always hope to see around the ages of 8 to 9, but we are seeing more first-time mothers around the ages of 10 and up.
Well, it's very unfortunate to see, but it's also good to know that you're going to be in there and trying to get as much data as you can about what had happened here. Are there other kind of data points that you can collect from the situation? Like, is there still kind of some mysteries about right whales to be unearthed, like the diet or habitat? What else can you learn essentially from a necropsy, as sad as it is?
Sure. So there aren't necessarily these wide scale mysteries for this population, but we're able to gather a lot of information. It's quite rare that we have a North Atlantic right whale wash up on the beach. And so whenever we are able to get that level of data, we look at everything. We look at their stomach contents to see if they were able to feed recently, and if they were, what they were feeding on. We'll look at their total body composition to see if they were relatively healthy or robust. We'll also look at any scars on their bodies. So we know from IFA research that roughly 85% of all North Atlantic right whales have scars of entanglements from some point in their lifetime. So we'll look to see if there's scars of past entanglements, we'll see if there's scars of past vessel strikes, and kind of try to get a comprehensive picture of what this whale's life might have looked like. And there's a bunch of blood and tissue research that the scientists will go into as well that will help to just inform the overall health of this individual and potentially feed into some trends that we might be seeing in the population.
Sure. Now, as well, I wanted to, we're talking about necropsies. It is unfortunately a deceased animal. I'm gonna ask a little bit of a grimmer, grosser question real quick. I just want to ask kind of what happens to the carcass after the necropsy is completed? How is this essentially disposed of if it's washed up on a beach?
Yeah, so that depends on the actual location. Different municipalities handle this in different ways. Currently, what the plan is for this individual will likely be a beach burial, which is really quite common. There are strict rules and regulations of how you go about doing that, but that is what we're looking at right now for this individual, but it is still yet to be officially confirmed what will happen.
All right, we will stay tuned. About coming up on time now, but I also want to ask about the as you're doing the necropsy, will you be removing the fishing gear? And if so, like what happens to that? Or if you find other man-made objects as part of that, where does that how does that stream work?
Sure. So, in terms of any questions regarding the gear, you actually have to ask NOAA because it's a
Oh,
part of a formal
mhm.
law enforcement investigation, as is common suit with any kind of interactions between whales and gear. So, for that information, unfortunately, you'll have to follow up with NOAA, and I can give you the contact if you don't have it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. I'll definitely follow up with them. Is there anything else that is that you wanted to comment on essentially as part of this? We've already talked about it being a valuable research opportunity as much as a sad occurrence considering it's an endangered whale. We did see recently the season has begun for right whales in the Cape Cod Bay as well as around this area. Should we expect more? Is this kind of an annual time that we kind of start to notice more entanglements or possibly even deceased whales? How is the time of year playing into this?
Sure. So a couple of things I'll mention there is we are wrapping up our 2024 calving season. We do have 16 new calves born this year, and they'll be making their way up north with their mothers into Cape Cod Bay. That is an annual occurrence for North Atlantic right whales. They congregate in the area for the rich food sources that the bay provides. And so locals can certainly expect to see more right whales just like they do every year around this time. We're hopeful that we don't see any other deaths. And we do know entanglements are par for the course with this population. Again, a significant percent of this population does have entanglements or evidence of entanglements at some point in their life. So it's not unrealistic to expect another entanglement to be cited. Um, but there will certainly be an increase of right whales in the area. And what I would say is that right whales face two threats. We know those two threats. Those threats are entanglement in gear and vessel strikes. And thankfully, we have solutions to both of those threats. And if you want to learn more about how you can help to reduce those threats, you can visit rightwhales.org to take action and figure out more or learn more about what you can do.
All right, awesome. Now, before we close out, just because as rare as this is, we might as well ask a little bit more about for the citizen scientist out there. If they come across an entangled whale or any kind of species or a stranded animal washed up on the beach, who can they reach out to? Who should be the first call, and how does that stuff get coordinated?
Sure. So there's always going to be a local stranding network, and depending on where you are, it'll be a different body. For most of Cape Cod, as well as part of the southern coast of Massachusetts, it is IFA, and we coordinate very closely with NOAA. And there is a standard stranding line provided by NOAA in all areas that will help direct you to that appropriate stranding network. So reach out to NOAA. You can also use the Whale Alert app if you're a citizen scientist and you see a healthy active whale on the water. You can download that app. It's free and you can log any sightings there. And that helps to inform us as well.
All right, awesome. While I still have you, just wanted to ask, how has IFAW been in general? Have there been other strandings? Has it been a busy time for you guys? Are you gearing up for any new initiatives while we still have you on the line?
Sure. Yeah. So I can really speak to our marine conservation and our right whale campaign. I know our marine rescue team has been quite busy. There have been quite a few strandings on the Cape, which is par for the course at this time of year. And we are fully invested in our North Atlantic right whale campaign, as well as some of our other international campaigns, such as Room to Roam. So it's an exciting time here at IFA, and we're happy and proud that we have the resources and the capabilities to help support these animals so that we can hopefully get them back from the brink of extinction.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for joining me for this conversation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Thank you.